Yo, what is going on, guys? Well, if you're in here again, I just wanted to go over the first day of Sepulchre Heroic. Just kind of give you guys like a slight idea of how everything's looking overall. We'll go over every boss, but take in mind that with it being the first day, some of these parses have very low like percent players. So, like with Outlaw Rogue, the people that are playing Outlaw Rogue are really good at what they do. It only being 250 people, they play the class and the spec because that's just what they love. Affliction Lock. I actually played Affliction Lock and I had some success on some fights, but you're not going to see much success with it. If you come over to, let's see, normal, you're going to see completely different numbers. Whereas Outlaw Rogue was number 1 and Heroic, you don't even see Outlaw Rogue until, 10th or 11th down. Affliction Lock's still very low. Destruction Lock's very low. Demonology Warlock's up here. You got Arms Warrior, which is projected to be worse than Fury. But Fury, once geared with set, is going to look really good. Fire Mage is looking better than Frost Mage. Obviously, Frost got a little nerf. Fire's doing pretty well. Set bonus comes out. Fire's going to be doing really well. Sub's going to be doing really well. Feral Druid's looking pretty good up here in normal. But let's just take a look at Heroic. We're going to go over this. We're going to go over every boss. That we're not going to have much of anything for like Anduin. There's not going to be any, Lords of Dres, we're not going to see anything. But let's just take a look at every individual boss, and then we'll come back over here to normal, and we got some normal Anduin kills. So we'll come back to this. So for Vigilant Guardian, it's a super easy fight. It's actually really brain dead. You're seeing your warriors up top. You're seeing your hunters, your rogues. That makes sense. You're not gonna see many casters like druids, like locks. Elemental, like all your casters are gonna be really low because this fight is really it's an ad fight, but the ads have very low HP. So for like me, I played Demonology Warlock for the fight, and building up my Tyrant, everything was dead by the time I got my Tyrant out. So half of my Tyrant was just gone, and until like the execute phase, you don't really do much as a caster. You might see, burst casters kind of do good, like Arcane Mage, who can kind of build up for the first pull, and then the next, group of ads that come absolutely just demolish a big group just with what they have going. But like I said, as for the first one, we're going to see Warriors, Beastmaster, even marksman hunters are going to be semi decent for this, just because their trick shots kind of going to really play well into it. We have a Frost DK that's kind of pumping on it, but like I said, here's the DPS so far for this. This is, mind you, if people have tier sets, they're not going to have it this early. So none of the early fights are going to be with tier sets, because it is physically impossible to have tier sets on the first boss, unless they killed it and then came back and killed it with tier 2. No one's gonna have tier 4 yet, but so far Warriors looking really good for the first fight. The second fight, this is a really good fight for really anyone. You're gonna see your balanced druids kind of go up just a little bit. You're gonna see Feral Druid up top, a lot of damage going out. Fire Mage, a lot of damage going out. Demonology Warlock, I had a lot of success on this fight. It's just, you kind of stand there, you pump. If you have your PIs, your Kyrian buffs, you're going to do very well. If you look at the actual range for Affliction, it's very bad. Like, it's just terrible. But if you look at the highs, you got Fire Mage up here pumping, doing amazing damage. Feral Druid's doing great. This fight is definitely going to be your hard-hitting single target fight. Whereas you see where warriors, who were number 1 on the ad fight, kind of fall off slightly. But overall, this was a very easy fight, just like the first one. All right, the third fight. So I'm going to go from here straight to prototype, just because that'll be the next fight. Prototype, I played Affliction for it. Absolutely demolished everybody in my group. Our second damage was a Beastmaster Hunter, and then our third damage was a Frost DK. So this just goes to show that even though Affliction Warlock is in a very tight spot right now, and you keep seeing it on the bottom, there are some fights that just reign supreme for multi-dotting. Where's Shadow Priest at? You got Shadow Priest in 7th down. They're not looking too bad. Balanced Druid kind of up here. You know, Feral and Sub are actually at the bottom, even with Demonology just like being not far from it. Fire Mage, who was second. On the second boss, all these kind of big hard hitters that you see in the first 2 fights fall very short to Affliction, Frost, Marksmanship, just because of the target cleave. Even with Windwalker, you have Bone Dust Brew, very big damage. You have Fury Warrior, who is constantly hitting 4 targets, and there's at no point in this fight where you're hitting less than 2 targets. During ad phases, you're hitting up to 6 targets. So, you know, last phase, you're hitting 4 targets permanently. As a Warlock, I just dotted, you know, Siphon Life, Agony, everything, and then Seed of Corruption into Phantom Singularity, and just, you know, did as much damage as I could. I was getting PIs, but Affliction Warlock's just going to be really good for that fight. Next fight is going to be Lihuvim, which our Frost Death Knight was pumping. I brought Affliction to this fight as well, but it's only because I did not have the time to swap back to Demonology. We only did 1 pull. But you don't even see Affliction Warlock on this list, just because, like, you would never bring Affliction. I actually wasn't doing bad damage with Affliction, but here again, you're gonna see your like harder hitting Frost DK, Windwalker, Sub, Fury. Just the big hard hitting melee is gonna be really good for this fight. It's just gonna be like I would say it's a really fun fight. You have for this fight, you're gonna have a lot of fun, just because it's like there's a lot of stuff going on. It's not too overwhelming, but it is like it does keep your mind focused, and there should be a lot of comms in your group. Once people get more comfortable with the fight, you're gonna start seeing a lot of people take it down a lot easier, just because they're able to like split their groups and deal damage to both ads. But so far, this fight is really fun. All right, and then we move into Artificer. Zymox is looking really good. The mechanics are difficult, but they're very, very rewarding in terms of once you get it down and once your whole group kind of understands what's going on, you find that the fight's not that bad. All right, so you got 5 parses on Outlaw. So this data's kind of skewed, whereas like you have like 30 parses on Monk, where the maximum DPS was all the way up here at 10.8k, and the max on Outlaw was just, you know, slightly under 10k. You have 60 for Sub, which is, you know, the overall is higher than the Outlaw, but the median is just slightly below. You know, with Outlaw being 9.6 and Sub being 9.1, Sub looks a lot more promising for this fight. Affliction Warlock down here at 4.8k, 1 parse. Very, very, very funny. I wouldn't play Affliction for this fight. I would play something like Demonology. I would play, you know, Arms or Fury. I would play Frost. Um, I would play Beastmaster, maybe even Survival, like, but I wouldn't take, like Affliction. Balanced Druid's kind of weak. Um, let's move on to Skolex. Skolex looking pretty easy. You got your Sub Rogues, your Shadow Priest, your Feral Druids. One thing about this fight is it's going to be semi-decent for Affliction. It's going to be semi-decent for Shadow Priest. Balanced Druid's going to pick up once they pick up. There's a lot of parses going on for this fight. As you can see, let's go down to Outlaw. 55 parses for Outlaw. It's just a good fight. 15 parses for Affliction. Pretty decent fight. Enhancement's looking alright. Enhancement's having a lot more parses than usual compared to Elemental, which only has 213, so it's double Elemental. So I would recommend, your hard-hitting, single target, Sub-Rogue, Arms Warrior, Feral Druid, Shadow Priest. All these are good classes for this fight. If you are able to swap specs, I would do it. If you're playing maybe Fury right now and you have the option to swap over to Arms, I would just make that transition just for this fight. It's just a really good fight for these few classes. All right, Halandris. This is going to be a lot of movement. Okay, so there's not many parses. Demonology is kind of out of the window with just how much movement there is. Destruction's out of it. Affliction's okay. Balanced Druid's not really going to have much fun. Sub-Rogues gonna have a good time. Assassination, just being able to stick on the boss and just dot it up and just do a bunch of damage. Fury Warrior, with it moving so much, you got Fury Warriors just being able to charge and get rage and rage dump. Enhancement Shamans, amazing. Empowers your Fury Warriors, your Assassination, your Sub-Rogues, your Demon Hunters. Like, you see all these melee classes up top, and then you see all these range classes down below. Which Monk is kind of falling short. There is only two parses, but I want you to know that Windwalker being like one of the most mobile specs, I would expect to see it kind of a little bit more, maybe with Demon Hunter somewhere. But as of today, we don't really have much to go off of on these parses, so let's just take a look at normal really quick. Alright, so you still have Sub-Rogue, like Reigning King, Feral, Enhancement, Assassination, Outlaw, Arms. Like, you have all of these single target classes, even Fury Warrior kind of making a stand. But you don't see your first, like, range until you get Beastmaster. But even with Beastmastery, it's like that class doesn't have to stop. You can run and cast every ability that Beastmaster has. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of, like, take this one out of the, like, mobility held back class. Whereas, like, Fire Mage, Marksman, Shadow, Demonology, Affliction, like, all of these kind of have, like, hard cast where they have to stay with the boss, and you're not going to have fun on this boss as a caster. But it is going to look really, really good for, instant melee that can just kind of stick to the boss. So, if you're a caster, don't be demoralized about this fight. Like, you're not alone. If you look at all these parses, these numbers just go to show that not every fight is built for every class. Alright. Now we got Anduin. Like I said, we're not going to have any heroic parses for Anduin. There have been no heroic kills. But for normal, we can kind of take a look and see what's going on. And as you can see, there is a lot of damage going out in this fight. A lot of it. And based off of the two classes that you see, Monk and Mage, these are really good priority burst classes. So you have Monk, who's going to have just big damage all at once with Bone Dust, Spinning Dragon Kick, Fist of Fury, just any kind of burst they got. You got Arcane Mage with Arcane Barrage into a just nasty blow up. Even Elemental Shaman's doing well with their Earthquake. You got Druids who have really good raid wide AoE. Fire Mage is good for AoE. Now, if you look Unholy and Frost, like, Frost has been kind of taking the cake on every fight, and then you have Unholy, where you get this AoE fight, and it's just, like, really, really good for Unholy. You got Demonology. If you go, like, Grim Inquisitors, like dogs, you're going to have a good fight. Sub-Rogue. Sub-Rogue is going to do so good on this fight, especially when they get their 4-piece. Havoc's just naturally going to have AoE. Fury's going to do good. Fury's going to do better than Arms just because of the AoE. Marksmanship's going to do better than Beastmaster just because of the AoE. Rhett's still going to sit pretty low. Enhancement Shaman, although seemingly low, they're still going to buff your melee DPS. Destruction's Cleave is going to be bottom of the barrel. Shadow Priest is going to be bottom of the barrel until set piece. Feral's going to be bottom of the barrel until set piece. Same with Destruction. Destruction's going to kind of rise up to maybe in this area. Passing Demonology when the time comes, just because of the set piece. But all around, you'll see your really big burst, single target classes just absolutely obliterating with the AoE and whatnot on this fight. Alright guys, so basically my all-around thought of the raid so far is it doesn't matter what class you play. You're going to have a decent time, and don't be demoralized by your parses currently, because whereas you might be fairly weak right now and you're seeing your class low, like Affliction Lock, Destruction Lock, Balance Druid, these classes are looking to be way better with set pieces. Like, way better. Like, Balance Druid is projected to be the strongest class by far, without a doubt, as always. Fury Warrior is supposed to be really strong. So, basically just play whatever you enjoy. I'm seeing some classes that just haven't been played at all this expansion doing really well, like Frost Death Knight, Enhancement Shaman's getting a lot of attention. Feral Druid's getting a lot of attention. Like, all Survival Hunter is getting a lot of attention. Like, all of these classes that are kind of like no named are getting a lot of attention just based off the fact that any class currently can pretty much clear the content. And it's ultimately about just enjoying your class or what you're playing. So, here's the heroic so far. There's not too many parses on it, but overall, you have Outlaw number 1 with 250 parses. And then in normal, you have your Arms Warrior being number 1 with 3,600 parses. And you have Outlaw way down here with, 697 parses. So, take all of this information with a grain of salt and do not let it, like, stray you from what you like playing. Like I said, I'm currently playing Warlock. I'm playing multiple specs on every fight. Demonology is looking very promising for a lot of the single target, and Affliction's looking really promising for a lot of the AoE fights, and Destruction's going to be really good on 2-target cleave, and that's just what it is. All these classes will pick up once we get our set pieces, once we get our double legendaries. So just don't let it sway you from what's going to be your go-to class, and that's just ultimately what it boils down to. But until next time, have a great day and a wonderful evening.